Hello and welcome to the virtual Shopify Meetup for Portland. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know a few folks are still joining us, but we'll go ahead and jump in. So my name is Alana Davis. I'm your host and meetup organizer. I work with e-commerce shops to remove friction from the buying process. I rescue websites, creating effective websites that attract more visitors, provide better SEO, and increase conversion rates at a fraction of the cost of a full redesign. A quick look at our agenda today. This webinar is being recorded, so assuming everything works, I'll be sharing the video in the next day or so. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. But before we get much farther, I did want to thank you all for your patience and understanding. This event was originally scheduled for earlier this month, but I didn't feel the timing was right due to the events that have unfolded, not just earlier this month, but over the past decades. It was important to me that we give our Black community members the respect they deserved by pausing all activities in order to amplify their voices. So I'm not sure if this is the right time either, but business isn't normal. But I do know that we can and will continue to fight for Black lives through our work. In order to do that, I will be sharing an article from ShopPad for Black-owned Shopify stores in hopes that you'll support them wherever you are. If your Shopify store should be added to this list, there is contact information at the bottom of that blog post. Thank you to our sponsors. Shopify is more than just an e-commerce solution. Sell anywhere to anyone with Shopify e-commerce platform and point of sale features. Eric Davis of Little Stream Software, the maker of JSON LD for SEO, helps your Shopify store win rich results in Google search, getting you more organic search traffic that converts better, all without having to fight for better rankings or paying constantly for ads. I'm going to share their links for you as well, so feel free to check them out. After some past feedback from our groups, I did end up creating a Facebook group because there was a need for ongoing conversations. So I've created this group in Facebook. I do hope that you join us and carry on the conversation in person. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Kai Davis, no relation to me, but Kai is the owner and founder of Double Your E-commerce. Welcome, Kai.
Unmute myself here. Hey there, folks. Let me just get my presentation started. Honored to be here today. And Alana, can you all see the intro slide?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I'll jump on in. So today we're going to talk about some simple yet powerful SEO tips for your Shopify store. And to kick it off, let's talk for a second about what Google wants. Well, Google's aim is to provide users, browsers, searchers with the most relevant results for what they're searching for. And Google honestly wants you and your stores to succeed with SEO. The better your site, the better your content, and the better your SEO, the better for searchers and customers, and the better for Google. So the more of a trusted expert authority you and your site are on a topic or about your products, again, the better for Google. Your content will be more relevant and more helpful to searchers, and everybody wins, including Google. So a metaphor that I think really helps connect the pieces of SEO is, well, your website is like a garden, and it's in your interest to do whatever best helps your site and your garden flourish. Or framed another way, you want to plant the seeds for success with search engine optimization. You want to fertilize your seeds in your garden over time, and you want to harvest your crops, your traffic, when it's ready. And just like maintaining a garden, SEO is an ongoing process. You're going to start, optimize, and improve your pages over time. There's just no set and forget with SEO. If you did that with your garden, you'd end up with weeds growing everywhere. So there's no shortcut to magically getting your pages to rank at the top and in #1 in Google with minimal effort or time. Again, you need to plant the seeds for success. You need to water and fertilize and prune over time. And then your harvest will come to you with time and effort. So who am I? I'm Kai Davis. I'm a digital and internet marketing consultant. I've been involved in digital marketing, internet marketing, and e-commerce for close to 2 decades now. I'm the founder of Double Your E-commerce, a Shopify micro agency that helps Shopify stores like yours get found online and get more traffic. I've been consulting on SEO since around 2010, working with Shopify clients since around 2014, and I've been working in e-commerce since 2006. So in 2015, I started selling my popular Website X-ray service offering. The Website X-ray is like taking your Shopify store in for a 98-point SEO inspection. Over dozens of these engagements, I've gained a deep appreciation of what people are doing right when it comes to SEO, what they're doing wrong, and how you could do better. So today, we're going to take a look at some of the foundational concepts that make sense for your store. We'll talk through short and simple optimizations, big picture and little picture, that you could make to help customers and help Google more easily find your site. At the end of the presentation, we're making space for Q&A. So as we talk through these topics and a question comes to mind, feel free to drop that into the chat and we'll tackle the questions we have time for at the end of the presentation. Let's start off by talking about optimizing search UX. Search UX, or search user experience, is the experience of a searcher finding your site in the results for a query or a search they made, and then clicking through to your site. What's that experience like for your store? Just like we pay close attention to our products and homepage, it's worth considering the tooth-to-tail experience a searcher goes through. They find something or they think of something they need. They search for it in Google. They find your site in the search results. They click through to your page or product, and they step forward in their buying journey to the next page on your site. Maybe it's the cart, maybe it's checkout, maybe it's something else. So as Google becomes even more sophisticated and as more and more people switch to e-commerce for their shopping, the experience of finding and accessing your site will become more and more important. Your goal is to just keep everything in alignment, and it's easy for this to start to fall out of alignment. You update a page, you start targeting a new keyword, your competitors start saying, oh, we're going to position our product this way instead of that way, and suddenly things don't make that much sense for somebody who's browsing and finds your store in the search results. So I recommend auditing your search experience at least monthly for your top 3 to 5 or more keywords. So to improve your search UX, first, you want to identify those top 2 or 3 keywords people are searching for to find you and find your store. Now, Google Search Console, a free tool from Google, is excellent at this. It could really help you dial in and say, okay, what are the most popular keywords people are searching for to find my site and click through? Then, for each of those keywords, you want to go through and self-audit the search experience. Search in Google for the keyword, look at where you are, where you rank, and where your competitors rank. What do people see when they find you? What's that experience of seeing your title, your URL, and your description in the search results? And what do people see when they click through to your site? And what could you do better when you go through this self-audit process? So switching topics for a second, let's talk about optimizing for search intent, a very foundational concept when it comes to search experience and people finding you. So we want to think about the meaning behind the query that somebody's searching for to find you. And your content really needs to align with the search intent. If you're targeting a popular and relevant keyword phrase like red shoes for ballroom dancing, you could optimize for other type of searches as well, like informational searches, what shoes to wear when ballroom dancing, transactional searches, coupons for red shoes for dancing, or commercial investigation searches, reviews for red shoes for ballroom dancing. So to improve search intent, you want to ask yourself, for your most important keywords, what search intent do they match? Is this informational, somebody looking for info, transactional, or commercial? What other keyword phrases for different search intents can you write content for? What else are people looking for? And what content can you create this month or this week for these other relevant queries? With page titles, as we start to optimize the content on our site, it's important to think through how people use page titles and what information we're sharing. The metaphor I love here is thinking of your page titles as headlines in a newspaper. If your page title is keyword stuffed, hard to read, or not relevant, that's going to really impact your search UX, that experience of somebody finding you. It's going to make it harder for visitors in Google to understand or know what your pages are about, and that's going to translate to lower rankings and lower clicks for your store. So the key mindset I like when it comes to page titles is actually empathy. We want to have empathy for the searcher. They're on a mission. They have a problem. They have a pain. They're saying, oh my gosh, this just broke. I need to find another one. I'm about to head out on a trip next week. So they're on a mission. And how could we have our page titles better describe the content, the information, or product on our site? So let's talk about the query red dance shoes. It's important to ask yourself, well, does my page title make sense in isolation? Is it meeting the searcher where they are in relation to the query? So let's look at an example here I found. It's for JJ's House shoes for the query red dance shoes. And looking at this, we could see, the URL at the top, the page title in the middle, and the description down at the bottom. We could see they're optimizing their title to focus on this query, and they're giving deeper context in terms of the types of dance shoes they offer. Their meta description is really well written, and I want to call it out. It's really well written for this query and both entices you and assures you as a searcher that, well, JJ's is a safe bet for finding your next pair of shoes. JJ's, I think, is doing a great job. This is something to emulate. It definitely meets the searcher where they are and helps move them forward. It's important also to look at your page titles in comparison to your competitors. So again, for the query red dance shoes, we have Very Fine Dance Sport Shoes Company, and they offer a nice contrasting look at page title and description. So we could see here, exact same query, exact same, this is the page that comes up, and their title is more focused on their company than the query. It really doesn't give us anything to work with when it comes to, hey, I need a pair of red dance shoes. Now, the description is also interesting because similar to JJ's, it gives us a rundown of the different types of shoes they sell. But this description, well, it doesn't entice us to click through. It doesn't assure us that this is a safe or good option. It honestly feels really keyword stuffed and spammy. So looking at these two in comparison, we could really see, I think, a good example of meeting the searcher where they are and helping them feel safe in moving forward in their buying or their browsing journey. On the balance, JJ's has a much better title and description. It calls out the relevant information. We could see this description is written exactly for this query. It makes sense, and it's just a better experience. So as you work through your site, pay attention to this. Look at how your pages are appearing in the search results compared to your competitors and start to see, well, is this as optimized or as friendly or as empathetic as it could be? Diving a bit more into page title optimizations, you want to pick a primary keyword to target for each page. And that means really just one keyword. Yeah, there's secondary and tertiary keywords that could get mixed in, but for this presentation, it's important just to focus on a single primary keyword. For this page, we're targeting this term. For every page title, you want it to be human readable and make sense. A good or a great title tag is written for humans first, not search engines, not robots, and the title should accurately describe your page, your post, or your product. You want to entice that searcher to click through. You want to build trust and sell that click. And if you're not sure what to say, start with just a basic descriptive title. Optimize it later. You could always add more shine to it with time, but it's better just to say, hey, this is clean, this is clear, this makes sense. We'll work on it, in a couple weeks or a month to make it even better. If you feel like, hey, my page titles are good, but I'm looking for a bit of extra shine or a bit of extra sparkle, this is a bit of an advanced title writing framework that I really like. So for draft one of your title, start with giving that passing nod to search engines, but starting from that point of making it human readable. For draft two, next consider social media users. The title of your page or article should be compelling to busy folks scrolling through their feed, browsing Reddit, browsing Twitter, browsing Facebook. For draft three, then add a piece or two or flair. And the easiest way to do this is just to add better words, change verbs, add adjectives, or replace dull words with ones that sparkle. Moving further into page content is super important. If we don't have page content, well, we're not really going to succeed in ranking or attracting people to our site. There's a ton of subtopics within page content we honestly don't have time to go into. With page content, you want to make sure you're matching what people are searching for. Again, it comes down in my mind to this foundational concept of empathy. Deliver what's promised, convey expertise, authority, and trust, and write your content so it's meaningful. Match what people are looking for, match what they're searching for. Content shouldn't be keyword stuffed, amateur, or weak. So how do you win the content wars with those competitors that keep outranking you? What I recommend is looking at your competitors that outrank you. If you're ranking 5th, look at the people in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. If you're ranking 10th, look at 7th, 8th, or 9th. You need to match or beat your competitors in terms of the quality and relevance of the content for that query. So take a keyword you're fighting for. look at your competitors for that keyword, and use this competitive research to set your benchmark for the content your store needs. We could go on all day about page content, and there's honestly enough here to say about content to fill a whole other presentation. But for now, we're going to move on forward to bounce rate. So bounce rate is the percentage of visitors who enter your site and then leave or bounce, rather than continuing on to view other pages on your site. So bounce rate really comes into focus when we ask the question, is this page meeting expectations for the keyword it's ranking for? If it isn't, your bounce rate is going to go up. There's that dissonance between what people are searching for and what you're handing them or delivering to them. One factor here is that high bounce rate is a big negative ranking signal for Google. Now, we could switch metaphors to a store for a second to think about this. If you're running a shop down on the corner and people keep showing up at your store, walking in, looking around, then immediately turning around and walking out, you think, what the heck is going on? That's exactly what Google sees and thinks when they see a high bounce rate on your site for a particular page and keyword. So to improve your search experience or improve the searcher's search experience, Google will lower your position for that keyword. They'll say, oh, hey, we've been ranking this high. People really aren't engaging with it. They're just walking out. They're bouncing out. Let's not rank it as high anymore. It's obviously not relevant. So how can you see a high bounce rate? Analytics like Google Analytics will give you insight into what your bounce rate is for pages on your site. Let's talk for a minute about bounce rate ranges. So if you load in Google Analytics or you already have it running and you go in and you say, okay, for the top pages on my site, what's the bounce rate? It can be hard to intuit, well, what does this mean? So breaking it down, if you have more than a 70% bounce rate, 7 out of 10 people saying, oh, this is not what I was looking for, that's bad. You really want to work on optimizing that page. If you have a 60 to 70% bounce rate, that's fine. It could be better, but this isn't something to necessarily worry about. If you have a 50 to 60% bounce rate, 1 out of 2 people or so are saying, oh, this is what I'm looking for, or this isn't what I'm looking for, that's good. If you have less than a 50% bounce rate, that's great. That's a wonderful page. It's meeting the searcher where they are. Don't even think about optimizing it at this point. One important caveat here, when it comes to thinking about bounce rate or looking at your bounce rate metrics in Google Analytics, you want to ignore those low traffic pages. So if you have 3 visitors and a 90% bounce rate, you're absolutely fine. Don't even worry about that page. It's not getting enough traffic for optimizations to really matter. So how do you fight a high bounce rate? Well, the truth is you have the curse of knowledge on your own site. You are too close to it. You don't see the issues. You don't see the errors. And so if you start looking at your pages and saying, well, how do we tackle this? How do we drop it down? You're not going to really see the pieces of friction that are making people say, oh, this is not what I need. I'm going to bounce out of here. So the most impactful options will involve seeing how other people use and engage with your site. So I really recommend investing in user testing. See where strangers visiting your high bounce rate pages get stuck. And this could be as easy as going to a friend and saying, yo, I'll give you $20. Just search for this keyword, click through to my site. I just want to watch you as you move forward and add a product to your cart and go to checkout. It's amazing what this shows you. This will help you find so many friction points, so many things that just don't make sense that you're blind to. One other optimization you can make is adding internal links, because bounce rate tracks, okay, this person clicked through from search to this page, and did they leave or did they proceed forward? If you add internal links to your site, to that page that say, oh, this is the next step for you. You want to check out this guide or check out this resource. It gives a clear next step for people to take. A third option is optimizing your page titles. And again, thinking about that search user experience. You want to make sure you're accurately communicating what the page is about in the search results. If your page title doesn't describe the page accurately, people will click through and search, get confused, and then leave. If you have a page title that says, say, dance shoes, well, the content is all about your excellent exercise shoes, well, that's going to lead to a high bounce rate. You aren't delivering the content that the visitor is searching for. So let's dive more into internal linking for a couple minutes. So what's an internal link? An internal link is just a link on one of your pages in the page content, not just the footer or the header, that links to another page on your site. So we can see over here an example with the Balanced Careers, a site that's doing a great job with search engine optimization. These arrows pointing to a couple internal links. Within this article on interview questions, they're linking to other relevant articles and pages that say, oh, hey, if you're interested in this topic, check out this other page as well. It's relevant. And so internal links both help people find that next page, but they also say to Google, hey, look over here, this other page, well, it's also relevant, and it's relevant about this topic or this phrase that I'm linking to it with. So make sure you see this, make sure that you rank this page as well. And so internal links help both people and Google's robots know what these other pages are about. It signals importance and relevance and helps with conversions and lowering bounce rate. It helps somebody who lands on the page say, this page content, it's not really what I was looking for. Oh, but this link over here to another thing they have, that's exactly what I need. And then they click and move on forward. So what should you do to improve your internal linking? Start off by identifying your most important pages. And these should include your top priority SEO pages, ones you want to rank better and get more traffic. So these could be best converting products, important marketing pages, or pages important for your SEO, pages that you say, hey, this quarter or this year, these are the pages we're working on ranking higher. So then identify a second bucket of pages. You want to identify your popular and high traffic pages. Google Analytics will help you see that. And pages with a lot of external links, pages that other people are linking to and saying, oh, this is a great resource or a great product. Then you want to connect the two. You want to link from those popular high traffic pages to your SEO priority pages. So that might be, we're ranking for the phrase red dance shoes or red ballroom dance shoes. And on that page, we say, hey, if you're here, you really want to check out my guide on ballroom shoes over here. And so that signals both to that visitor, oh, this is another page you want to check out. And to Google, this page I'm linking to, it's also relevant and it's also important. Your internal link helps say to Google, this is one of the most important pages I'm linking to here. Make sure you check it out. So let's expand on linking for a second and talk about link building. Now to clarify, link building is primarily about getting other third-party sites to link to you. This is slightly different from internal linking. Instead of building the links ourselves, we're getting other people, external authorities, to link to our site, and that signals expertise, authority, and trust. For example, if you're selling a product and the New York Times or Wirecutter says, oh, we're going to link to you, that's a strong vote of confidence. That's saying, hey, this site we're linking to from the Wirecutter, this is an expert on this topic, or they're an authority, or you should trust them when you buy this product. So the more high quality links you have coming to you from other sites, the more expert, the more authoritative, and the more trusted you appear. So let's switch metaphors again and say we're having a yard sale. And if you're having a yard sale and you're just expecting people to find your yard sale without signs or ads, just by luck, that's going to be a recipe for failure. Nobody's going to be able to find your yard sale. So links to your store are like signs in yards throughout your neighborhood advertising your yard sale, saying, hey, go check us out. We're going to be open on Saturday. The more signs you have, the more likely people are to know about your yard sale, and the easier it's going to be to get people shopping at your yard sale. Now, relevance and quality play a huge part here. If you live in Portland, Oregon, and you have signs up in Portland and ads in newspapers in Portland about your yard sale, you're doing it right. You're going to be attracting the right people to something that's relevant for them. Now, what if you go a bit bigger and you say, okay, we're having our yard sale in Portland. Let's get some signs and ads down in Eugene, Oregon. Oh, that's not going to be so great. Not a lot of people are going to make the drive up. You're going to be, spending this money, getting this attention from people who really aren't a fit. Let's take it one step further. So you have your yard sale in Portland, Oregon. You have a sign in Nebraska, Oklahoma. That's just going to seem weird, not relevant, and spammy. So this metaphor carries over perfectly to link building. The links you're earning, the links you're building to your site, they need to be relevant. They need to convey expertise, authority, and trust. And higher quality, higher relevance, better or more authoritative links, they're going to have an outsized impact on your store and your ability to be found in Google. Again, we could think about that link from the New York Times or the Wirecutter. If we have them linking to your store, it's going to be a huge signal of expertise, authority, and trust. So returning to the garden metaphor, link building requires this investment of time, effort, and resources. Link building is like spending week after week in the garden, building paths, laying down hose, working on garden beds, pruning the plants, There's no set and forget with link building. It's an ongoing investment of time, attention, and effort. You're planting the seeds, building relationships, watering and fertilizing, and harvesting high quality, relevant links over time. So you want to focus on these next to earn more high quality links for your store. The first thing is outreach. And outreach is really just as simple as identifying relevant people, emailing them, starting a conversation, and asking them to link to you. So you might outreach to vendors or suppliers or customers or industry sites that are relevant for your niche and your products and say, hey, we noticed you're talking about this. We've got some great products over here. Would you like to include a link to us? You could also focus on creating high quality content that answers questions or provides direction. High quality content like guides or resource hubs really attract links. If you're providing value, if you're helping people solve a problem or answer questions they are experiencing, it's going to be shared, it's going to be linked to, and it's going to get more and more attention over time. The third path I'd like to earn more links is digital public relations. And this really looks like investing time and or money in things like going on a podcast tour, speaking to relevant people who might be customers for your product, or writing guest articles to reach those relevant people and customers, earning offsite reviews, or speaking at conferences, ways that really help you reach a larger portion of people in the online space. So you earn more links to your site that helps your site rank higher in Google and signal, oh, this site is really an expert or an authority on this topic. Let's dive into EAT for a second. So EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trust, a concept I've touched on a couple times within this presentation. And really, expertise, authority, and trust, EAT, is relevant and important for your store because as Google aims to share the most relevant, timely, and helpful resources and content, expertise, authority, and trust are almost like a filter they're laying on top of your store, your products, your content, and the links pointing to your site. If you're signaling, hey, we're an expert on this topic, well, it's one of the ways Google will be able to sift the good content from the bad and say, oh, these products, this store, this content, this is relevant, or this is spam. So expertise really focuses on learning a topic well. And you could start to build your expertise in your niche or in your market or with your customers by reading books and writing articles, having conversations online or offline, watching videos and going to conferences, and then sharing what you're learning, really demonstrating you understand this topic at a deep, deep level. Authority is all around creating a reputation around yourself and your store within that topic. So that might be, again, writing content or producing videos, giving presentations or talks at events or conferences, things that let you share your expertise and let you signal to both Google and other folks out there, oh, this person understands this topic really, really well. Trust is all around building trust signals around the web and around your website. And these look like reviews and testimonials, social proof, contact and communication links, or inbound links from events and conferences and high quality relevant sites. Now, expertise and authority really sound like the same thing. So what's the difference? Well, expertise is more of what do you know about this? And authority is more other people recognize that you know a lot about this and this topic. So do these to build your expertise and authority and trust over time. So again, with expertise, focusing on digital public relations can work well. Winning awards, speaking at conferences, writing for websites, being a guest on podcasts, and reading more and more about a specific topic. With authority, it comes down to reviews, links from other authorities, and writing more authoritative content. It's good to think to yourself, do you have business talking about what you're talking about? If you do, that's a great internal signal about the authority of your content. You're demonstrating your expertise. With trust, this really comes down to online reviews from happy customers. Reviews are a known ranking factor with Google. The more high quality reviews you have on-site and off-site, the more trusted, the more reliable, the more impactful Google is going to see your store, your products, and your content. Public relations, again, can work really well here. Guesting on podcasts, writing guest articles. The metaphor I like here is, think if you're selling home decor, you want to have articles on 5 ways to make the most out of your space. You want to have articles that inspire people in Google to say, oh, this person is both an expert and an authority on this topic, but they're sharing reliable, helpful information. I really trust them. That's what you want to convey through your content and convey to Google and people searching and finding your content and your articles online. So that's pretty much it for my presentation, and you must have questions at this point, and I hopefully have some answers for you. So we're going to switch over to Q&A for a little bit here and tackle the questions we have time for.
Thank you so much, Kai. I love that analogy of the garden. I think that's my favorite way I've ever heard someone describe SEO. So that was very good.
Just like a garden, it could get really messy.
Yes, exactly. So I do have a couple of questions, and as I read them off, feel free, folks, to post some more in the chat, either using the chat link or opening up the Q&A. Either one is fine. So to start off with, I know Sarah asked about what is a good bounce rate. I know that you addressed this, Kai, but she asked right before you addressed it. So Sarah, feel free to comment back in the session, in the chat, if you have more questions on that or if you got that answer.
Yeah, and just to hit on that point again, I say aim for, that 50 to 60% bounce rate. If it's higher than that, it definitely signals, oh, you should optimize these pages. But even more so than that, I think you want to see a consistent trend downwards with your bounce rate on your most important pages. So it's not enough just to say, oh, we got it to this metric. But once it's there, you want to make sure you're checking back monthly or quarterly. Has it creeped up? Is it trending down? And if it's still stable, you could ask yourself, hey, have I learned anything that I could deploy on this page to maybe move that bounce rate down a little bit over the coming month or two?
Perfect. Sarah also asked, is paid link building worthwhile? We have a company that we pay once a year to create backlinks for us. Are we wasting our money? How can we tell? What questions do we ask them to determine if we're wasting our money or not?
Ooh, this is a good question. I love link building, my friends. It's a deep and rich topic. So one of the challenges we can get into when it comes to paid link building is we might not know how people are building those links for us. They might be, spinning up spammy sites and just having them link into us. They might be paying other people for links and not disclosing that through meta tags on the page to say, oh, this is a paid link or this is a sponsored link. So what I'll often do when I'm working with a company that does paid link building or a client of mine has invested in that is I'll say, okay, let's sit down with them or send them an email and just say, hey, we'd love to learn a little more about this process. We don't want to assume they're doing something spammy or bad, but it's important to say, hey, how are you building these links? Are these relationships you already have? Is this content you're placing elsewhere? What does this process look like? Or how do you determine if this is a good link for us or a link that really isn't worth it? And so when you send over questions like these, you want to see if they're being forthcoming and direct. This is a process we follow. These are the type of links we're building for you. This is why it's worth it. Or if they get a little dodgy and they're like, oh, all our links are excellent. Thank you so much. Talk to you next quarter. If they're kind of sliding away from the question, again, it's not signaling these are terrible links, but it's signaling there's something that they aren't comfortable disclosing. So I'll often use a tool, a link building analysis tool. I love the tool majestic.com. And Majestic is great because they've basically crawled the web and they've built up a huge database of sites linking to each other. So for my client, I might stick their site in there and say, okay, let's see the new links you've earned over the last month or the last 3 months. And then we could take a look and say, oh, wow, they said they're building 20 links for us, but we aren't seeing any, or all these links look like they're from spammy sites. So that's another good way to approach it, taking a look and seeing, hey, what links have we earned over the last month or quarter, and are these good or bad? If the link building company you're working with hasn't been sending over a regular report saying, these are the links we built for you, I really recommend starting to ask them for that, just so you get a little more insight into the process about the links they're building for you and how often they're coming in and where these links are placed. Paid link building can get a little spammy or on the less great side. Again, connecting to expertise, authority, and trust, links really signal that expertise, authority, and trust. And if we think about that metaphor for a second, and somebody says, oh, this Kai Davis guy, he's great at SEO. And you say, well, why do you think that? Oh, he paid me $50 to tell you that. Suddenly all that expertise and trust that might have been conveyed in that first referral just vanishes and disappears. So that same sort of insight applies to paid links. If it's just a paid link, it's not relevant, Google gets better and better at detecting those. And so suddenly these paid low quality links can negatively impact your site and your rankings. One last thought to add here. You definitely don't want to just completely turn off link building. It's valuable to have it ongoing. It signals expertise and authority. It brings people in. It helps you rank higher. But it might turn out that the company you're working with isn't really aligned with your goals. So it would look like switching to a different company who's better at earning higher quality relevant links for you than completely abandoning link building. Anything in that I could better explain or clarify?
Sarah, I'll let you put some more questions in the comment if you would like him to expand on that any further.
It's a big topic. There's a ton of nuance to link building and doing it right.
Okay. I'm just responding, or I'm just looking at Sarah's thing. Looks like you answered it very well. So good job, Kai. Okay, so Griffin has a question. As a Shopify app developer, what are the best ways to reach Shopify store owners? And I'm going to add my own piece in here to say, as I think what he's asking, is it different? Is there different advice for selling to Shopify store owners versus as a store owner selling to consumers?
Oh, okay. So sort of like, how do you, let me think here. Not so much like how do you earn the links, but how do you reach these store owners or make that contact to make them aware of your plugin or your app so they could say, oh, this is something I need?
I think that's what he's asking, yeah. And Griffin, feel free to comment if I'm misinterpreting what you're asking. He says, yes, that's correct.
Wonderful. So part of it falls down to some of the same SEO fundamentals we talked about here. Ranking for the right relevant keywords, making sure you have content online that signifies expertise, authority, and trust. But when it comes to reaching store owners like this, I honestly like digital public relations. So that might be saying, okay, what type of store owner is the best for me? And just thinking here, we'll use the example I shared in here. Maybe your app is great for stores that are selling dance shoes or accessories like that. And so it might come down to finding other audience owners who already have an audience made up of your ideal customer and saying, hey, can I write an article for your audience or your readers? If you have a podcast, can I come on it and talk about what you can do well, what the app helps you with, and why it might be a good fit for you, dear listener? So I think focusing on both search engine optimization and focusing on digital public relations to meet your ideal customer where they already are the two channels I'd most recommend.
Perfect. Okay, so Trina asked if she could have they, I'm not sure, could have a replay. I just wanted to clarify, yes, I will do my best to make sure this is recorded and sent out to everyone who attended. And those who couldn't attend may also receive it as well if I can. So this will hopefully be published, assuming everything goes well. Okay. Eric asked, how do you make online presence on social media when it's so crowded?
That's a really good question. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know if you have input on that.
Yeah, social is hard because content on social, tweets or posts we make, they get buried relatively fast. So one of the things that's helped me the most the few times I've really engaged with social is honestly niching down. The smaller and more targeted we could make the people we're trying to reach in terms of this industry or this market or this sub niche, the easier it's going to be to find them on social, find, say, the micro influencers or the micro authorities who have already built up an audience there and start to engage with them. I found that almost, if we think about it in terms of personality on social, having a real human, not a corporate or a business personality, help, even if you're tweeting or engaging online as a business account, really helps cut through the noise. Showing up, acting human, sharing relevant resources. As much of a trope or a buzzword this phrase is, engaging in the conversation, just talking with people and sharing relevant high quality resources, answering questions really helps cut through the din or the miasma of social. That said, it can be really challenging. Starting from zero on social can be hard. Trying to break into a crowded space can be hard. I almost think the slow and steady metaphor makes the most sense. You aren't going to see, a home run overnight when it comes to social engagement, but you want to say, hey, we're slowly engaging here. We're building up conversations. We're helping people know about us. One other thing that comes to mind when it comes to social, you really don't want social to be the end point for that engagement. So it's not enough just to be on, say, Twitter, tweet at people, engage in the conversation and not point them anywhere. You want to make sure you're harvesting that attention or that energy and pointing it elsewhere, maybe at a specific landing page, maybe at a product, maybe at what I really love is an email list. So you could say, hey, if you like chatting on here, like what we're sharing, you really want to get on our email list where we're sharing more. It's helpful. We release cool resources or bonus stuff, whatever it might be. But once you could take those conversations from social and move them over to email, it's a lot easier to nurture that relationship and move it from a conversation and interest to a customer or a repeat customer.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm getting a couple of questions specifically about their stores and, why am I not making sales? I'm just gonna broadly say that this may not be the best place to ask that question because why you're not getting sales could be a lot of reasons. It may have nothing to do with your SEO, probably has nothing to do with your SEO. So I'm just going to say, feel free to reach out to myself or Kai later if you have questions specifically around that, because it might be a little bit too complicated for us to address that here.
Yeah, completely agreed. One sort of general tip that comes to mind is it might be about traffic volume. I've worked with a lot of store owners who come in asking that exact question, hey, why aren't we getting sales? And I'll look at Google Analytics for their site and say, well, you've had 15 visitors in the past week. If we think like 2 out of 100 or 1 out of 50 people are going to convert, we're not getting enough traffic to turn into any sales. So if you're struggling with conversions and saying, what's going on? Why am I not selling? I strongly recommend look at Google Analytics. If you don't have Google Analytics installed on your site, get Google Analytics installed on there and give it a couple weeks to collect information. Then start looking and see, well, for the traffic we have, where are they coming in? Where are they landing? Do I have enough traffic overall to even get a conversion or get the volume of conversions I'm looking for? Starting from those points will give you an idea about whether we need to do more SEO and get more traffic, or we already have a bunch of traffic, but nobody's really converting, and it's really a conversion rate optimization project at that point. So definitely take a look at Google Analytics and see what data you could pull out about where your traffic is coming from and how much traffic you have.
Yeah, and folks are sharing their websites with us. I actually would challenge you, Kai mentioned auditing yourself for your SEO. Audit yourself for your store as well. Look at it from the consumer's view, like who your customers are and what they might learn from you and about the products that you're selling. What questions might they have? So take it from the same perspective that Kai's talking about from SEO and apply some of those similar questions to your own website. I'm not going to be able to look at sites on here, so I would say do that first and then you can reach out afterwards for sure. Okay, so Fabiola asked, how do we get reviews from the customers?
Email. Email is going to be the king when it comes to king or queen or gender neutral emperor of getting reviews for your products. You want to make sure you're following up a couple of days out after the purchase and saying, hey, you just made a purchase, just to let you know, it's in the process of getting sent out to you. If it usually takes a week or 10 days or however long for the product to get to them, see if you could have your email marketing program, Klaviyo or Drip or Mailchimp or something else, send out an email at that point and not necessarily ask for the review, but just say, hey, we think your product should be to you by now. Just checking in. Has it showing up? Is it not there yet? Are there any problems or issues? And surface any objections or challenges they might have. Then a couple of days after that, follow up and say, hey, your product should have been there for a couple of days by now. If it's not, hit reply, let us know. But if you're enjoying it, the most valuable compliment you could pay us is to leave us a review. And here are the instructions. Here's a link. Here's how to submit it. So you really want to make it as smooth and easy as possible for somebody to leave that review. And if you have a challenge with people leaving, negative or not so kind reviews, make sure you're surfacing opportunities for them to share that feedback with you over email. So you could course correct or rescue an order that might have gone sideways and restore it to like, oh, wow, like this was a terrible experience for the first week, but then they saved it and it's a 5-star experience now. So again, email is going to be the best path here, just to follow up with people and move them towards leaving a review.
And then just to add to that, if y'all didn't hear the words that Kai was saying, none of that was standard templated emails. Like those are custom words that come from Kai. Those are often the ones that I see the biggest conversion when people ask for reviews, is when you're personable, you're actually wanting to help, you're actually wanting to talk with the people that are buying from you, versus finding some template that you get from your review company and putting it out there. So make it so that it matches who you are, who your brand is, and be personable with it. That's how you get people to want to interact with you, is when you're more personable.
Completely agreed. One small trick that I really like for, writing that personable copy. It could be hard when we're just trying to write it cold, but you could have a friend or a relative or just somebody you like and know place an order for your product, and then manually send these check-in emails, just like however you'd write an email to your mom or your sister or your best friend and say, hey, did that thing get to you? Just checking in, let me know how it's going. Once you send those emails, use those as the starting point for the automated emails. So you're starting from this, warm, friendly, personable conversation with somebody and then moving that energy, moving those words over to the automated email that will be sent out to everybody who places an order.
Agreed. Okay, so David says, I've recently been paying more attention to my Google My Business dashboard by putting posts in there, adding photos and such when I'm adding things to my website. Does interacting with the Google Business dashboard help my website?
That's a really good question. Unfortunately, I haven't played around a lot with Google My Business, so I'm not able to really answer that question in specific. What I have heard and what I do know, though, is if people are, commenting, asking questions, engaging there, even if it doesn't help your SEO, it's going to help other people who show up on your Google My Business page. It's going to help answer questions, or it might help raise topics that make you see, oh, we need an article about this or a page about this on our store or linked to from this product page. So while I can't specifically say if it's helping your SEO or not making an impact, there's a lot of value in doing exactly what you're doing, answering those questions, seeing what topics come up, and making sure you're sharing relevant information.
Yeah, I can say that I have interacted some with my business as just personally for me. And I do see that it's helpful. I don't know that it's measurable at my level compared to maybe some of you, but I'd say anytime that you're working with Google, it's only going to help you because they're going to use their own data to help, promote you more as well.
Yeah, completely agreed on that point. And if we think about it, whatever Google is sort of nudging us to do, answering these questions, sharing this content, chances are it's probably going to help more people find us. If they're saying this is the path to follow, that path most likely leads to more traffic and more people.
Okay, Eric says, I opened an account last year and I have advertised it with flyers, but most of my sales are by word of mouth. How do I start selling on the internet?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me think here. So, it might be, that's a really good question. I don't have an immediate great answer to it. Thinking on it, it might be looking and seeing who your competitors are online. So returning to the Red Dance shoes comparison, if you're selling Red Dance shoes, search online and try to see, okay, who else is targeting these keywords or selling these products, and what are their page titles? What topics are they writing about? Starting by imitating them in a sense and writing similar content or answering similar questions can help you get some content online. But SEO, to return to the garden metaphor, it's a long ongoing process. Doing those steps won't immediately start getting you more sales. So maybe it looks like talking with the people who are these word of mouth referrers or the people who are purchasing from you and asking them questions about where they spend time online, what communities they are engaged with, if they're on social sites like Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, and using those answers to point you in the right direction. Oh, 5 of the 10 people who are these word of mouth referrers, they all spend time on these sites. Well, that's a good signal that you could spend some time on those sites as well, start engaging with people. That's really what I'd recommend. I'm sorry that I don't have a great answer to it. How about you, Alana? Anything come to mind there?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Essentially, if you're starting your marketing from scratch, where you're trying to figure out where your audience is, and you might have audience in a lot of different places, but where are the people that are most likely going to buy, right? So I could advertise and get 100,000 people to my site, but if it's to the wrong people, it doesn't really matter. So you need to find out where your customers live, essentially. But one of the things that I found most successful with my clients is 100% blogging. And I use blog, but I don't actually mean blog. I prefer the word articles personally, because I feel like it's a lot of the stuff that e-commerce stores write they live there forever, right? Like a lot of that content doesn't just go away. So when you're writing, very similar to what Kai was saying earlier, you're writing an article to answer questions. And when people are typing these questions into Google, Google sees that you have the right answer, and then they become more and more familiar with your site. The other thing that I've seen is when folks go to like craft fairs, for example, to sell their products, but then they want more people to buy online so that they don't have to keep going to craft fairs. The best thing I can say is to start making sure that the craft fairs or whatever it is that you're going to has a website that will promote you on their website as well, which encourages more people to look there first as opposed to coming in person. But then also, whenever you sell something in person, make sure that you also tell them, here's my card or whatever, please go online and spread the word about me that way, as opposed to purchasing in person, because that helps you get a better presence online. When more people come to you, it helps with that. So I think oftentimes people also just want to help their friends out, or, someone says, can you process this payment for me? And they go and they do it themselves. It's like, no, don't do it for them. Say, here's my link, go to my website and purchase it yourself. And then you might even get your average order value up because they bought something else that they weren't even planning to buy because you were going to process it for them. So I would just say whatever you can do to get people to go to your site instead of processing it yourself, and instead of only talking with your friends, is going to help you more.
Completely agreed. Great points.
Okay. Bart asks, so we have over 800 products pages. Do we focus only on the main homepage bounce rate and SEO, or do we look deeper into the collections and product pages?
Very cool question. So I think homepage should absolutely be part of it. I'd say to sort of like sort the wheat from the chaff, or sift the wheat from the chaff, and know where to focus when it comes to the 800 products and the tons of collections. Look at your best converting products first. If you have a product converting at, say, 4%, 4 out of 100 people who land on it and they're purchasing it, and others that are converting like 1 out of 1,000, not a high conversion rate, focus on the high converting products first and ask yourself, how could we get more traffic to these pages or these high converting products? That could look like adding more content, earning more links, optimizing, the title, the meta description, the on-page SEO. But I think, out of the 800 or 1,000 plus pages on your site, picking 20 even seems like a lot, maybe 5 to 10 or 15 to start, and working on those and then iterating through. So maybe the first 2 months or the first 3 months, you're just focusing on these 10, then you move to another 10. Next quarter, you move to another 10, and then you circle back to the original ones. A cadence like that could help you tackle multiple ones over time. But I think to figure out where to focus, definitely the homepage, definitely the best converting products. And if you have a collection or 2 collections that are getting a lot of traffic or moving people into these high converting product pages, focus on those as well. You definitely don't need to start with all at once. Carving out just, a small sliver, working on those and iterating to other small slices over time is a great approach.
Yeah, and when I do a service called a website review, and whenever I do that, the majority of my time is spent on the homepage and the product page, because those are the ones that typically convert most for the general population. And remember that your product pages are templatized, but your SEO is not. So you need to make sure that you are spending your time where it's going to be the most valuable. So if you try to bite off all 800 products that you have, that sounds really overwhelming to me. So I agree with Kai, picking, your top sellers, or if you have still 100 top sellers, pick 5 to start with and work on those, see how the changes that you've done improve or don't improve your SEO, and then iterate off that. Okay, Todd says, if you have a website already, in your opinion, what are the 3 best, quote unquote, ways to get more organic traffic?
Earn more links. It's almost always going to come down to earning more high quality, relevant links. Past that, it's going to be optimizing the page titles and adding more content. So if for this particular page, we're ranking 5th, it's important to say, well, how do we rank 4th? How do we rank 3rd? And that's going to come down to that competitor analysis or that competitor insight. How much content do those competitors have on those pages? Where are their pages better than yours? Where are your pages better than them? And then try to raise the bar to solve for any deficits on your own pages. So link building is always going to be a huge one. If you don't have links, people aren't going to be able to find you. Making sure you've optimized, your page titles for the relevant keywords, and then making sure you've optimized the content on your page, both for depth and quality, and integrating whatever signals you have about expertise, authority, and trust.
Okay, Teresa says, I am very new to e-commerce and Shopify. What is SEO?
Good question. And like any sort of fundamental question like that, it's challenging to give a clean, clear, and simple answer. So I'll try my best. Search engine optimization, I see really 2 parts to it. One is making it easy for people to find you online so that when they're asking Google or a search engine a question, your site is seen as one of the higher quality responses to that question. Where do I buy red dance shoes? Well, if you've search engine optimized your page or your site, it helps say to Google, hey, this is relevant. This answers your question. This points you in the right direction. So search engine optimization is about making it easy for people to find you online. The other half of it, or the other part of it, it's really in a sense like advertising in a Yellow Pages phone book. You want to make sure through search engine optimization, you're surfacing the right information to help somebody who's experiencing a question move on forward in the process to answer that question or find the product they're searching for. So really, I guess on both sides, it comes down to helping Google and helping people find the right answers to the questions they're asking.
That's exactly how I would describe it too. I usually say, pretend like someone is asking a question and Google is trying to provide them the answer. That's SEO. Okay, so I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. I apologize. Amaris, I think, asks, do backlinks from social media sites have value? For example, LinkedIn or Medium articles, Facebook and Twitter posts that are shared by friends and family.
It's a mixed answer. They have some value. They might not have as much value as, say, an article somebody wrote on a blog or on a review site saying, oh, this product is great or this product isn't so great. Part of the reason why it's a muddled answer is Google, on the positive side, Google looks at traffic coming to your site and traffic coming from, a popular post on social or LinkedIn or Twitter to say, oh, this page or this site, it's more relevant. Traffic increases from any sort of social sharing. Say to Google, hey, this is a relevant article. This is an important article or page or product. On the other side, and why it's a little muddled, is to prevent spammy link building, social sites like Twitter or I believe LinkedIn or Reddit will often set links within articles or posts with a special tag that says no follow or sponsored that mostly signals to Google, hey, there is a link here, but because this is on social or for other reasons, don't give it as much weight. So if we think of as a link as having, say, 100 link units, maybe a social shared tweet or a social post, it only has 5 or 10 link units. So it's helping a bit. It is a signal, but it's not as great as other channels or other options. Searching around on Google can definitely give you a definitive answer. So you might say you might search for Twitter link building or Medium link building and see if you could find a couple content articles that talk about either how to optimize link building on these social platforms or if it's even worth thinking about link building on these social platforms. A good question, but unfortunately, it's definitely a murky answer.
Thank you. And then we have an attendee that says, we run a jewelry shop on Shopify. We offer jade jewelry, which is different, and we have bigger ticket prices, but our store never really seems to reach much more than 50 visitors a day. We ran some ads and just started to get into SEO. Where can I find my niche customers for jade jewelry that we have?
The first thing that comes to mind is asking your existing customers. And this might look like emailing them a couple questions or saying, hey, I'm doing a bit of, customer research. I'm getting on the phone, or, my marketing consultant said, hey, get on the phone with half a dozen or a dozen customers and ask them a couple questions. So you might reach out to them, offer a call, and within this call or conversation, ask them some questions about what niches they belong to. And definitely don't use that as a question. Most people will be like, I don't know what you mean. So you might say, tell me about your day. Like, what do you do in a day? What's your family like? What inspired you to buy this jade jewelry? So maybe you talk to a dozen people and 6 or 7 of them are like, man, I was headed to this wedding or headed to this party, and this jade jewelry was just so beautiful. And I knew it would look different and unique and really stand out. And so that could give you a signal that maybe you want to focus on selling your jade jewelry to people attending weddings. So within a subset of the wedding niche. I think customer research really comes down as one of the most impactful and valuable steps you could take here, just to learn more about how the people who are already buying your products, how they identify what niches they belong to, and where you could sort of double down and say, oh, some people are coming from this niche. Let's see if we could crank up the marketing. Maybe it's ads, maybe it's SEO, maybe it's social, maybe it's something else, to reach more people who are within this niche and let them know about our products and our content.
Yeah, I think the other side of it too is you can go the long haul and just try to spread yourself thin and just do some of your own marketing in a lot of different areas and see what works. I don't always recommend that because half the time you're spending a ton of energy with little reward. But, for some people that may not feel comfortable reaching out or don't really know where to start with that, like that's an option. I just don't think it usually is very fruitful.
Mm-hmm. There's a law of consulting that I absolutely love called the law of raspberry jam. And it sums down to the wider you spread it, the thinner it is. And I always think of that with marketing. If we're trying to do, 7 different marketing things at once, we're really spreading ourselves thin. Our marketing isn't going to be deep enough to reach somebody in one of these niches. If we're focusing either on a smaller niche or just fewer marketing things at once, it's going to be a lot thicker jam. So it's definitely a fun law to think about, but I think it's really impactful as sort of a guide stone for our marketing.
Okay, and Teresa says, I'm a Shopify shop owner and linking is a new concept to me. So do I need it?
Absolutely. And I think the primary reason you need it, well, 2 primary reasons. One is Google will look at links you've earned, links from third-party sites as a signal that this is relevant. This is, expertise or a relevant product, or they're an authority on, say, jade jewelry or red dance shoes or whatever you might be selling. So one half of it is it's a strong signal to Google that your site could help answer the questions your customers or visitors are asking. The other half of it is your competitors are most likely going to be doing link building as well. So as they earn more links, they're going to consistently start to outrank you. I recently saw this with a client of mine who has an established e-commerce site, had earned a lot of links about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think his email list got up to something like 70,000 people. He was very successful, over 1 million visitors a year. And then he called me and he's like, my traffic has dropped down to 30% of what it was a year ago. What's going on? So we did a website x-ray. I stepped through his site, and it turned out his competitors over the past year or 2 had really aggressively started earning more links. So even though his site was relevant, high quality, answered the questions people were asking, the links his competitors had earned started to move him down the page. And as he ranked lower, he earned less traffic. So earning links definitely is important because it signals to Google you're relevant, you're an authority, you're trusted, and you're an expert. And because Google is going to be looking at your competitors and seeing if they're earning links, you'll slowly start to move down for your keywords and rank lower because, well, Google will say, if there aren't earning links, maybe they aren't doing this anymore. Maybe they aren't as relevant. So I think link building is absolutely relevant and important. And reaching out again to vendors or customers or review sites or sites within your niche or industry can be a great way to start building relationships and then ask for a link from them as part of that relationship.
And at the same time, I also understand that, going back to spreading yourself thin, sometimes it's really difficult to do that. And, if you have to pick and choose where you put your focus on, that's something you have to weigh, Teresa, of like, do you want to risk that or not? Yes, I agree with Kai that it's incredibly important, but if it means something else fails in your business that takes precedence, you have to make that decision.
Completely agreed. And it might be for your site, Teresa, maybe you're doing a lot of paid or referral or social, and those are getting you your sales. So it might be, link building is important, but if you invested that same energy in link building or social or what's already working, well, what's already working will get you a bit further. So exactly to Alana's point, you really need to weigh it against the other parts of your business and what's already working and where you might be able to double down.
Agreed. Okay, Jacqueline says, what is a good resource to help us learn how to read Google Analytics?
Ooh, that's a great question. I really recommend Moz.com, a very popular SEO tool in the Pacific Northwest. Their content is amazing. They got into the SEO content game more than a decade ago and have continually delivered high quality content. So I definitely say check out Moz.com, do a search in Google for Moz.com Google Analytics Guide or starting with Google Analytics. And that will really give you the information you need to start to ask Google Analytics questions and understand the answers it gives back.
And I will just add to that, I'm actually talking with somebody who I'm hoping will come speak with us about this. So fingers crossed, we'll get a speaker that can specifically address Google Analytics and, more importantly, Google Analytics with e-commerce. Okay, Amaris, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name. I'm trying not to. Ask a couple questions in here. Can we get a quick summary / roadmap to building backlinks for a commerce store launch? In other words, in what order should we approach people for podcasts, social media posts, etc., when funds and resources are limited?
Oh, good question. So with funds and resources being limited, I think focusing on not the large, say, let's use podcasts for this example. Don't focus on the large or the more established shows. Instead, focus on the smaller, the getting started, the starting to establish themselves shows. They'll be more likely to say, oh yeah, we'd love a guest. We'd love to take part here, and not respond with, oh, we have, 1,000 guests in line already for $100 or 500. You too could be in line. So focusing on those smaller or medium or getting started opportunities really in any aspect of digital public relations, guest articles or podcasts or other things can be a great way to focus your resources in or avoid having it turn into a big cash expense. Let me think here. Could you read the question again, Alana?
Can we get a quick summary / roadmap to building backlinks for e-commerce store launch? In other words, what order should we approach people for podcasts, social media posts, etc., when funds and resources are limited?
Thinking about the order part of the question, I think through what you want to do to make a splash. So that might be social posts or connecting with micro influencers. And after that, you might say, okay, once we have this initial social proof, once people are talking about it, then let's reach out to podcasts and say, hey, we're getting a bunch of buzz already. People have a lot of questions. I wanted to see if your podcast wanted to have a conversation about this topic or this product for this audience and why it makes sense, and see if you're able to sort of continue that initial launch energy or social energy and turn it into more podcast engagement. I feel like I'm not giving the perfect answer, but I hope that gives some initial direction. Anything you'd add onto that, Alana?
I think, this kind of goes back to what I said before. I think a lot of it probably depends on your business and you yourself and what you're capable of doing. Like, the order of operations may not necessarily be important, more so that you just do something as opposed to nothing.
Completely agreed.
So they also asked, are there any affordable alternatives to Buzzsumo that you could recommend?
Oh, let me think here. I love Buzzsumo, and I've used it extensively in the past. For those that haven't heard about it, it's sort of an influencer database and influencer outreach tool. Buzzsumo really provides like two pieces of value. One is they can help you identify who these influencers are and, you know, the email address or the social for them. And the other half is they could help with this outreach or sending these emails to these influencers and say, hey, we got this product, we're doing a launch, would you like to take part in this? So on the influencer identification side, I typically approach it by doing research within that niche and say, using Google or using some social tools like Twitter or Reddit, who's talking about this, or who are people sharing, or what content are people looking for, almost exploring it as if I was a person in that audience myself and I was asking questions to find these influencers. So you could replace part of Buzzsumo with doing this exploration or this research yourself. The other half of where I see that Buzzsumo value in the outreach capabilities, there are some free extensions you could add for Gmail that lets you define a campaign and say, hey, you know, send this email day 1, send this email day 5, send this email day 7, upload a CSV of email addresses, and just have Gmail automatically send out those emails for you. It sort of turns that metaphorical crank to send those outreach emails. So you could definitely replace parts of Buzzsumo with that research and with Gmail extensions. I unfortunately don't know the names of any off the top of my head, but Googling around for, you know, Gmail automatic email or outreach or sales outreach can definitely point you in the right direction. There is another tool that comes to mind. Part of that value of Buzzsumo is saying, hey, this is the email address for this influencer. I really recommend the tool hunter.io. And it's a great tool. They, similar to Majestic or a link builder, have scoured the net and said, okay, for this site, what email addresses have we found on pages or on pages linking to it or in PDFs? And they have a free plan and a paid plan to help you see, hey, for this domain or this site, what emails have you found? So it's the tool I use often in my own outreach campaigns, just to say if I found, say, a dozen sites and I want to contact them, I'll take those sites, load it into Hunter. I use the free plan myself, and just get back the most likely email addresses to email. So you could most likely replace Buzzsumo with doing some of the research yourself, Hunter to find those email addresses, and then a free Gmail extension or add-on to be able to send an outreach campaign over time.
And then James asks, how important is the store name? Can it be changed if needed?
It definitely can be changed if needed. The one spot where I think it could trip you up or it is important is if you're getting traffic from brand searches. So my mind's blanking on a good example, but if you look in Google Analytics, or I'm sorry, if you look in Google Search Console and you see a lot of people are searching for our store name or our store name and a product name, then you'll have a bit of trouble because you change your store name. Google might see the new store name or the new URL if you change the URL of your store as not being relevant for that search. If you look in Google Search Console, or you're able to say, hey, Kai, I'm 99.9% sure nobody's searching for our brand name or our store name, then you are most likely fine to make that change and change your store name. But it's definitely worth thinking through. How are people finding you? Are you using your store name in any existing marketing? Are you ranking for relevant keywords for your store name? And if any of those are true, you want to think through, okay, how could we best mitigate this? Or are we going to lose a lot of traffic if we make this change? If not, it probably makes sense to make that change.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, and I know the answer, but I know this is something that I often hear about from my clients too. You know, there's a difference between changing your store name and changing your domain name. Mm-hmm. So can you please address that? You know, if you were to change your domain along with your store name, would that be an issue?
Yeah, changing the domain can really impact it. Part of it is all the links you've earned previously, they're going to be pointing to your old domain name. So maybe let's use my site for example. If I was changing from double your e-commerce to double your Shopify, well, all those links pointing to double your e-commerce aren't pointing to the new site, double your Shopify. Page content might be off. So altering a URL like that, it definitely can be done. I just think there are a lot of considerations around it. If a client said to me, hey, we want to change, the domain name, the URL for our store, I might say, well, what's driving that need? Or do we have the option of spinning up a second store, having both running in parallel over time, maybe over a couple months or a year, starting to move all the content, all the links, all the products over to the new store, see the traffic to the old store start to dip down, and then start redirecting all the traffic to the new store. So it definitely can be done. I think caution is a good approach there, and making sure you're doing it slowly and over time and dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's would really be how I'd recommend it. How about you, Alana? How would you approach that question?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I often tell people to think very carefully before changing your domain. If it's a matter of a preference and the other one is perfectly fine, then keep what you've got, or do it at a time that makes sense. So I actually had this conversation with somebody early on when everything shut down for COVID, and their business completely stopped. They couldn't hold anything. So there was no business online. There was no business in person. They had a brick and mortar also. And at that point, there was no impact to them because no one was searching for them. No one was coming to them trying to find out information. They knew that they were closed. So that would have been a great window for them to make that transition to a new domain if they wanted to do that. But if they decided to wait until later in the fall when maybe they might be able to reopen, then as people start to search for things more again, they would have that hiccup essentially, where they may or may not lose their ranking, and they may or may not lose it at the wrong time. So I do think timing is a huge factor. If it's your busy season that's coming up, do not change your domain name right now. Wait if you can.
Completely agreed.
Okay, so there's another question. What kinds of things should we do to earn more links?
In my mind, it really comes down to starting conversations and building relationships. I'm sure everybody here has received, those kind of spammy link outreach emails where it's like, hello, I was reading your site. You should include a link to me. And I have a big issue with that type of link building outreach because they're basically asking for a valuable favor, but we don't have a relationship yet. I don't know who this person is. So I think starting from a point of saying, okay, who do we want to link to us? Big, small, in between. And then who at those sites or those stores or those businesses can we start to build a relationship with? Not just explicitly to get the link, but because they're in the same industry as you, they're in the same niche, they're relevant to you. It'd be good to, be following them on social, have a conversation or an email exchange with them, start to build this relationship. And then over time, you're able to say, oh, hey, by the way, we're doing some link building. I saw you had this article. Could you link to me? And it comes off as an authentic and a natural question and a natural process because you already have that relationship. The other part of it, I think, if you're looking to earn links, writing guest articles is always a good option. Google consistently has said, hey, guest article link building, it's something we approve of. If it's high quality content, if it's relevant, if it shares expertise and authority. So looking around in your niche or your market and seeing who's publishing guest articles or who's publishing a lot of content, and then again, sort of the same play. Reach out to them, start a relationship and say, hey, we're experts on this topic. We really know the ins and outs of red dance shoes and when you should and shouldn't wear them. We'd love to write an article for you about it, help teach your audience about this. Would you be up for that? And you're contributing value. You're taking a bit of work off their plate by saying, hey, I'm going to write this article for you. It'll help your audience. And so that makes it a bit easier and a bit more natural. So again, starting off by identifying people and building relationships and then making the ask, or starting out by contributing guest content, seeing who else is publishing guest content that's relevant and high quality, then reaching out to them and starting a relationship or a conversation and making an offer.
And we've got just about 5 more minutes. We're not going to cut it off or anything like that, but if you do have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. There's still a few more left that I'm going to definitely try to get through. But if you have anything else pressing, don't hesitate to put it in there. So James says, if I have plugins costing me a monthly fee for each one attached to my store and I cancel my store, do these plugins automatically stop?
I don't know the immediate answer to that. I'm 99% sure they do, because if they didn't, I think people would have sort of put it on blast on social, or I'd have come across it. Reaching out to Shopify help could be a great way to get an answer to that type of question, but Alana might have an immediate and absolute answer on it. I'm pretty sure it would auto cancel those charges. Do you have any insight there?
It would. Your builds through your Shopify store typically, unless you did it outside of your Shopify store, and then you would have a separate account. But if you do it through the Shopify platform itself, a lot of those monthly fees would halt. At the same time, if you have an app that is trying to pull analytics or something like that, for example, that you need historical data, a lot of that would stop. It would halt because you're not paying them to maintain that. Some of them will pick up if you were to repurchase again. Some of them will pick up, but many of them start fresh. So just be mindful if you pause your store versus canceling versus I'm just not going to promote it in any way. Like, all of those things can have factors, but I understand that funds have an issue with that. But when you cancel your store, a lot of the times you're stopping all payments across Shopify. So any apps associated go away. And then if you were to restart it back up, not only are you impacting your SEO because you've essentially told Google that you're not doing anything, you're closing. But when you start that back up, a lot of your apps could be erased as well, and you would start fresh. So be careful with that. Okay, so Rainier says, not a question, but just a recommendation for other shops. This Shopify app called Judge Me Product Reviews, and it adds reviews to your product pages. It's really helped my store, and it's free. I can also just add to that. I do like working with Judge Me. I think it's one of the best review apps that are out there. It's judge.me if you haven't heard about it. Okay. And someone asked, would you recommend Mailchimp for email marketing, or what other email marketing tools would you recommend?
I think Mailchimp is a great and affordable way to get started with email marketing. I know that they sort of had a break off in their relationship with Shopify, and I know Shopify is moving towards their own Shopify email product. If you have access to Shopify's email marketing, or you'll get access soon, that could be a great spot to start. The tools I often use are a bit more advanced. Klaviyo is one of them, and Drip is another. I've used Drip for about 6 years now and really like it, but it's definitely more of a power user email marketing tool. I really wouldn't recommend it as like the getting started with emails point. Definitely Mailchimp, or I'm blanking on the name of another one I recently used, but Mailchimp or Shopify's would be what comes to mind as that starting point. How about you, Alana? What would you recommend as that getting started with email marketing tool?
Yeah, I mean, if you're literally just getting started, Shopify's email may be sufficient for you. It's not, super robust by any means. I personally use Mailchimp myself, so I do think it works. Many people believe that Mailchimp doesn't work on Shopify anymore. It does. You just have to make it work for you. There's no app associated with it in Shopify's app store, but it does work. I know other people, Klaviyo is one, Segundo is another, and I'm also blanking on a couple as well. There's a lot of different ones, but I think it really just depends on the money that you want to invest to start off with. Something like Klaviyo is great, but it is super robust and costs more money than maybe what you might want to spend right now. So, Mailchimp is fine. Shopify's email is fine. I would say, as I mentioned before, doing something is better than nothing. So a free option is always great just to get your list building.
Yeah, completely agreed. Get started with what makes sense for you and your budget, and then practice getting better at email marketing. It's kind of like riding a bike in the sense that as you build the skill, you'll always be able to come back to it. But you'll definitely have a couple missteps and a couple, hey, I fell off the bike moments. So when you get started with email, make a practice of sending regularly to your list, asking them questions, engaging in a conversation over email, and that really will help teach you what topics to write about, what topics to create content on, and just get, your muscles limbered up for the art of email marketing.
Agreed. Alistair says, does SEO help a general store? Are general stores still relevant?
It can help a general store. I had a client a couple months back who very much was like a general kitchen parts store, had something like 100,000 different products. And so he was able to use search engine optimization to rank well for those products and get a number of sales. But the caution I'd apply with a general store is you kind of need a niche or want a niche to focus on. Again, to return to that law of Raspberry Jam, beautiful visualization, the wider you spread it as a general store, the more products and more people you're trying to appeal to, the less relevant you'll be for those individual people. So I think thinking of a general store in terms of we're a general store for this very specific niche can be a great way to be able to tap into a niche for marketing or search engine optimization and still sell a wide range of products.
Agreed. Okay, and then I believe this is the last question, and then we'll wrap up here. So Jacqueline says, we have a lot of podcast news articles already on our media page. We use SoundCloud to play them right on our page. How does Google recognize those? Do I have to link directly to the podcast as well? I don't even see this media page in our Google Analytics. How do I make sure this page is helping our ranking?
It might, so answer here is will take a minute or so. When it comes to link building with podcasts, a lot of the value is it's a third-party podcast. So maybe you come on like the Kai Davis e-commerce podcast, which doesn't actually exist, and just as an example. So when an episode comes out and the show notes are similar, that podcast would link to your store or link to a product. And it's that link from the third-party podcast to your store that conveys that value to Google. If it's your own podcast, it definitely can be helping, and I don't think it's hindering, but it probably, the only way I think it would really impact your link building would be if people are linking to your site or your store because of those particular podcast episodes. One optimization that comes to mind is within SoundCloud, I think you could upload or enter in a description of this particular episode for the podcast. Within that, it would be valuable to include a bit of content, share the value proposition for your store and link back to it. But tying into the social media link building answer from earlier, it might be that SoundCloud sets links as no follow to prevent people from spamming SoundCloud with a ton of links pointing to their stores. So it might be that you're doing the absolute right things here, but it just won't result in links coming to your site. Expanding it and identifying other people in your niche or market who have podcasts, maybe these are competitors or colleagues or review sites, and reaching out to them and saying, hey, we have a podcast and we'd love to, guest on your podcast. Check out our things. You could hear that we have good quality audio. We know what we're talking about. That could be a great way to get placed on other people's podcasts and earn link backs to your site and store. And the flip of it could also work. Identify people who have podcasts or frequently guest on podcasts in your niche, invite them onto your podcast and say, hey, one thing we ask guests to do is, share this short description about the podcast episode to promote it on their site or store or blog. And within that description, have a link pointing back to your site. So I think those are two more intermediate approaches that you're in a good position to do because you're already podcasting. That could help you earn links from third-party podcasts or from guests you invite onto your podcast.
Wonderful. I think that's all the questions. So I did just share the Facebook group link as well as both Kai's website and mine. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And as I said, I hope that this recording will work. Oh, great. Thanks, Kai. You want to wrap this up then?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for attending. And I put together a copy of the presentation with my notes and a little downloadable PDF on recommended free and paid SEO tools that I use and like and get my double thumbs up. And you can definitely download those at wourecommerce.com/PDX Meetup. And Alana, could we get a link to this in the wrap-up email or similar to folks?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. And in case you're in need of, search engine optimization help with your store, I have two services that I just wanted to quickly plug. One is the SEO tune-up. It's a done-for-you service tuning up your site, your top 3 products for common SEO issues that could be affecting you. and the other is my website X-ray service offering. It's a deep dive analysis. I'm going in and doing, the 100-point inspection, and the resulting report calls out the top 5 to 8 big wins for you to do yourself to get more traffic. And please feel free to reach out anytime. I love to chat e-commerce and SEO and digital marketing. So feel free to shoot me an email anytime now or in the future at kai@doubleYourEcommerce.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kai. Thank you everyone for attending, and we hope you have a great evening.